Every year on the NFL roster, there's a massive amount of turnover. Even when the franchise keeps the same GM and head coach, almost 20% of the roster is replaced from the year before. So when a team gets rid of both their head coach and GM, you'd be right to expect some major changes on the roster, which makes the Browns an interesting situation because despite being 6-10 and firing their head coach and their general manager, they seem pretty set on keeping the same core roster intact. But like any NFL team, there will be turnover. So let's look at the roster and look at some of the people at the end of their deals or near the end of their deals and see if they're going to be on their way out or if they're going to return to Cleveland in 2020. The first guy on this list is Olivier Vernon. Now, there may be a lot of debate about a lot of the people on this list, but this is probably one of the least controversial ones I can think of. Olivier Vernon was brought in to replace Emmanuel Ogbah and was supposed to be the anchor opposite of Myles Garrett, and Olivier Vernon did virtually none of that this season, racking up only 3.5 sacks and 4 TFLs in just 10 games in 2019, and not to mention the fact that he wasn't even really available during the stretch of games where they truly needed him when Myles Garrett was suspended indefinitely for the rest of the season. To add insult to injury, and to put how bad Vernon's play was in perspective, Emmanuel Ogbah in 10 games this year had 5.5 sacks in 6 TFL, so better in both categories, significantly too. Also, another thing about that comparison that you have to remember is completely significant is that the Browns traded Ogbah to make room on that defensive line for Olivier Vernon. So not only did the Browns keep the less productive player in that trade-off, they also ended up paying $14 million more dollars for that lesser player and the lesser production than they would have if they would have never traded for Vernon in the first place and kept Emmanuel Ogbah as the anchor opposite of Myles Garrett. And let me make this clear. Emmanuel Ogbah is not like a great option on the other side. Vernon was just that bad in 2019. And I know he was injured, but he played 10 games. This is what Ogbah did in 10 games. That's what Vernon did in 10 games. It's not close, and Ogbah did not have nearly the amount of snaps that Vernon did. Just a bad year for a player who's going to hit the 30-year-old mark here soon and is going to be very expensive next year. So it's safe to say that this, in hindsight, was a bad exchange, and that's something that John Dorsey does deserve a good amount of criticism about. Now, why am I so sure Olivier Vernon's going to be gone? Well, let's look at Olivier Vernon's contract. In 2020, Olivier Vernon is slated to make $15 million, but he is also no longer owed any more guaranteed money in his contract, which means that the Browns can cut Olivier Vernon and take no cap hit, not a single cap hit at all. It's $15 million free dollars for the Browns cap, which means that Olivier Vernon is virtually a free agent. He just doesn't know it yet, but he's a free agent. There's no way he's going to stay on that deal coming into the season. There's no way the Browns are going to pay him $15 million. Either he's going to have to restructure or he's going to be a complete free agent. Either way, he's a free agent. This contract he has, it's written on toilet paper. It doesn't matter. He's done. Especially since the Browns' current regime has zero incentive to keep Vernon. He had lackluster production. He was also injury prone. He's going to be 30 at the start of the season. And Andrew Berry's not the guy who traded or signed him. So Vernon's not in a good spot. He has a team that has the benefit of gaining $15 million in cap space and cutting you. And you have no leverage because you did not play well the season before. And also you were injured and now you're 30. So at best, he might be able to restructure this deal to like $5 million a year. But more than likely he's going to get cut and find a new contract somewhere else for significantly less money. It's a sad day for Olivier Vernon, but again, I'm just here to tell you who's coming back and not. And I really don't think Olivier Vernon stands a single chance of coming back to play for the Browns in 2020. All right, the next guy is Chris Hubbard. Do I need to explain this? Do I need to break this down? Do I need to tell you the benefits of doing this? Do I really need to explain to anybody why Chris Hubbard should not make what the $8 million he's scheduled to make next season when they can cut him and get like $5 million in cap space? I don't think I have to explain this. He's a guy who got outplayed by Kendall Lamb during the season. He's a guy who just flat did not play well. Was part of the reason why the offensive line was the mess that it was. Chris Hubbard is also a project from John Dorsey's reign as GM. And again, John Dorsey's not here anymore. So I think the Browns see a mediocre right tackle that's going to be scheduled to make like $8 million that they can cut with the $2.4 million cap hit and, salvage $5 or $6 million in that way. So yeah, Chris Hubbard, nice of you to come play in Cleveland, but I would also consider renting and just getting a jump on things and figuring out where your off-season home is going to be, because I don't think the Browns are going to even attempt to act like they're going to do anything but cut you. Yes, Demario Randall, the next guy leaving town. Now, his value went from here to here in a course of a season. And some of it's not his fault, but a good amount of it was. And again, when it comes to a guy like Demario Randall, sure, the small injuries are there, and the inconsistencies on the field are there, but he also has other things. And I am 100% convinced that Demario Randall's issues getting the money that he wants in free agency this year is going to come 100% down to the other things. That's what's going to make it hard for a team to sign him. He's going to get signed, but he's not going to get the money that he wants. And he's not going to get the money that he deserved after his play in 2018. So Demarius had the phantom concussion minutes after just saying awful things about Greg Williams. And then he also was suspended for some kind of mysterious misconduct behind the scenes that we don't know what it is. Some say he came late to a practice, some say he was disrespectful. Either way, it seems like Demario Randall was a constant headache for the Browns front office this season that they kind of just put up with. Demario was also another one of those John Dorsey reclamation projects. And look, not all John Dorsey reclamation projects are doomed this season. Kareem Hunt's probably going to find his way on this roster because it makes a lot of sense and because he's Kareem Hunt. But Demario Randall offers a lot of the same issues as Kareem Hunt. Some of the inconsistencies on the field that you don't get from a Kareem Hunt. And at the end of the day, he's not as good as a player at his position as Kareem Hunt. So he's going to be gone, unfortunately. I like Demario Randall. I think he adds a nice little edge to the team, but I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you that I have any ideal that the Browns are going to retain him this offseason. It does not seem like that's the direction they're going to go. And honestly, quite frankly, given the direction they're going to go, not a great fit for the culture that they want to build here. So, I wish Demarius well. I think he's going to land somewhere else and be really good and have a great future, but it's just not going to be in Cleveland. All right, so this is the most interesting one. It comes down to your linebackers, right? Because you have Christian Kirksey and you have Joe Schobert. And the reality of this situation is that you're either going to keep one of them or you're going to cut them both. But there is no way that you keep both of them. And I take no joy in that proclamation because these two seem like great people. They seem like fine locker room assets. They seem like solid leaders. Not like amazing leaders, but you know, they're solid football guys, you know, that can be trusted. They're adults. But the reality is financially, these two aren't going to be able to exist on a roster in 2020 together. And here is why. A player like Joe Schobert on the free market is going to be worth anywhere from about $8 million to $10 million a year. And I also don't think Joe Schobert's going to have an issue finding a team that's going to offer him somewhere in that range of money. He's been to a Pro Bowl, has good numbers. There are some linebacker needy teams out there that might take a chance and give Joe that $8 to $10 million. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are a prime candidate to do that. Now let's look at the other guy, Christian Kirksey. Well, he's going to be up for about $10 million next season. So you're going to be paying, if you keep Christian Kirksey on the team, of course, about $10 million for Christian Kirksey's services. Here's the facts. No team in the NFL pays two inside linebackers $8 to $10 million a piece. It's not a place the NFL teams really spend that much money in anyways, let alone on two people. And that's one of the issues, is that it just doesn't make sense to build a team like that and to have two guys make that much money, especially when one of them is very injury prone at this point in his career. The second thing is that the Browns did draft two inside linebackers. Now, this gets muddied because, again, John Dorsey's not here. If John Dorsey was here, 100%, they're both gone. Mack Wilson, Taki take over in those roles. But now that it's a little bit of a different situation, this gets a little bit more muddy. But the Browns did draft two linebackers with some solid picks in 2019. One's going to be a starter, and there's going to be a future for him in Mack Wilson. He's too talented to be denied. He should be a starter. He proved he can be the starter. There's no doubt in my mind that Mack Wilson's going to have a large role on this team next year. And then you have Taki, who's shown some promise, but he was a project player picked by John Dorsey. But he's also a high character guy, also a plus athlete for the position. So again, it seems like somebody that Andrew Berry might consider keeping around and might think of as a solid replacement for a guy like Joe Schobert. Keep in mind, we don't know how important linebackers are going to be in this new defense. We really don't have an idea of what kind of defense is going to be ran here. So this is speculation. I could be very wrong about this. They could keep both of them. I don't think it would be smart, but they could. But the reality is that they have Mack Wilson and Taki under contract. They look promising enough, and they're going to be about combined maybe $2 million in cap space. And then you go to Schobert and Kirksey, who, if you wanted to keep them both, would be about $20 million. If you wanted to keep one, $9 million to that $10 million range. So again, you're talking double digits for a position that you can probably fill and replace for maybe $1 or $2 million. It just doesn't make a ton of sense financially. And again, I'm not trying to discount Joe Schobert. I'm not trying to say he doesn't add a lot to the team. I think he does add a good amount, but I don't think what he adds to the team is necessarily so rare that it's worth $10 million. I don't think that's the case. So here's what I think is likely. I think they're going to cut Christian Kirksey, which would free about $7.5 million in cap space. And then I think what they're going to do is turn around and offer Joe Schobert that exact $7.5 million in cap space. If they really like Joe, they might up it to 8, but I don't see it getting higher than 8. I think 7.5 to 8 million. That's where they're going to go on their offer. I don't think it's getting any higher than that. And I don't think they're going to offer more than a 2-year deal on that. I think they'll just take up the remaining cap space that they would have had with Kirksey and just offer that to Joe Schobert to see if he'll take it. I don't think Joe Schobert's going to take this because I think Joe Schobert's going to get better money elsewhere. I don't think either is coming back because of the dynamics that I laid out. I don't think he's a guy that you give $10 million to, quite frankly, on a team that's hoping to contend, on a team that has a lot of good players on their roster and a lot of young players that you're going to have to extend. I don't think Joe Schobert's one of those players that you give $10 million to. If you can get him for $7.5 million, maybe $16 million over 2 years with $10 million guaranteed, I think you do that. I think that's reasonable. But anything more than that, I just would think is kind of a hard deal for the Browns to make. Again, I'm not saying Joe Schobert's a bad player. I think he's going to have a great career after the Browns. And I think he's going to carve out a nice little, like DeQuell Jackson had a long career after the Browns. And like Christian Kirksey might be, if he can stay healthy, have a good career outside of Cleveland. It's just that the money that you would have to pay to keep them on the team is just not worth it. And the Browns are in a different situation than they were when they were offering that kind of money to Christian Kirksey to stay. Now they have a good enough roster where they can't really waste money or spend money disproportionately on players on positions that just, it doesn't make a ton of sense to spend that money on, especially when you have to consider that Baker Mayfield, you would hope, is going to be worth a lot of money. And Myles Garrett, you would expect when he's up in a year or two, is going to be worth a ton of money. And you need to keep those two players above anybody else. So if Joe Schobert is a casualty in that, then that's just how football works sometimes. That's my thoughts on the Browns free agency. That's who I think is going to be gone from this team, the notable names that will not return. Let me know who you think is not going to return, and do you think I'm wrong on any of these? But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.